Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are recording a video here for you guys about Friday night's playoff slate. Got a couple games to look at here in this one. The Kings and Warriors continue on, as well as another fun series that will continue on for us here with the Lakers and the Grizzlies back in LA. This is our best bets video. We also have a video with some player props in it for you guys, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Check out what we're bringing you each and every day of these playoffs as we continue on. Also want you to head to thelines.com. You can get all of our great written content up there about the games. We are putting the picks on the site right now, and also have our odds finder tool up there that you can use to make sure that you're shopping those lines, getting the best odds available to you across all these US sports books. We are thinking that we did pretty well in that Hawks Celtics game that is on Thursday night. We'll be taking a look at that with you guys, getting back to you on the record in that one. So for now, we're just going to move on to our first pick, best bet from you, Nate, for Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, I think we expect the Warriors to close out at home. Admirable effort by De'Aaron Fox playing through the injury, but with him hurt, I don't think the Kings are going to be able to hang here, and I'm not going to play the game of how much will the Warriors score and go over or under there. I'm going to go under on the Kings total, 113.5. Nice odds there, minus 105, because they are the most prolific offense in the regular season. They can score in bunches, and they have scored for the most part. But 3 of the 5 games have been at home in this series, and one game they scored just 97 at Golden State with Draymond on the bench. And really what I'm looking at is, aside from Fox, their 3-point shooting has just been awful. And he spreads it out. He gets it to the 3-point shooters. And if they were hitting, you would think like, okay, well, the Kings will still be able to do their thing, even if Fox isn't very efficient. And by the way, he was not efficient. Again, an admirable effort, but 9 for 25 in game 5 there at home. And eventually, like Josh said, he basically had to hand the ball to Malik Monk and say, finish us off in crunch time, which is a huge concern for the Kings, who were known as the most clutch team and with the most clutch player in De'Aaron Fox. Without him, they scored 13 points per game fewer this year. They scored about 108.5. And Fox has just been an absolute mastermind on the road, 125 offensive rating since the All-Star break. Like I said, the 3-point shooting is awful as a team. They're at 30% in the 2 games at Chase. They went 0 for 9 at home in this last game and went 10 for 34. Herter shooting 20% in his last 4 from deep. Harrison Barnes shooting 20% as well. Both have rough offensive splits. And you can't even necessarily say like the lean on Domantas Sabonis, who's just getting big boyed by Kevon Looney at all times. And that's not even when they switch Draymond onto him. He's averaging, just over barely any more assists than turnovers in the series. And his 2 games at Chase, he averaged just 14.5 a game and was a minus 29 in those 2. So I just have a hard time believing the Kings offense is going to be great against a Dubs team where if you just look at last year in their playoff run at home, they allowed 103 a game. They played at a 96 pace. I know with the Kings, you're going to play a little faster because that's how they want to play. And the first few games were like that. But this is a clinching game, right? This is the playoff Dubs, the experience. This is Draymond's 78th home playoff game with this team. And I think he's going to be experienced enough to keep their defense coordinated and keep the Kings under this total.
Yeah, I tried to pick an under in this series. I did it twice. It worked in game 3. It did not work in game 4 when they came home. It didn't really work in game 5 either. But if you want to look specifically at the Kings, I mean, what we saw in game 5 was a really, really good offense with De'Aaron Fox having his hand full of Toradol or whatever sort of numbing agent that they used to get him to not feel the fact that his index finger was broke. And it was still wildly impressive to be able to hit 3 threes without touching the rim coming out with a numb finger. Like, if you can't feel your index finger, it's still a pretty big detriment to your shooting. And the fact that he did that was probably all just like blood and guts that he was bringing to the table, which he has a lot of. And I love D Fox, but it is the reason that I didn't want to fade him in that game, but I did want to root for Malik Monk, was that very reason. And Malik Monk is a very solid scorer, is really aggressive going to the rim and a really solid athlete, really good shooter, like awesome offensive player. But like, isn't the engine for this offense that De'Aaron Fox is, outside of just being a shooter, as good as Malik Monk is going to the rim? He's not De'Aaron Fox, who's 6'5", bigger than damn near everybody that tries to guard him at his position, or even other two guards. And so he's a matchup problem. But if he can't shoot, we talked about it before, that is the crux that's really been the difference between an offense last year that was good when he got Sabonis on his team and was solid, and an offense that's out of control, awesome and historically amazing this year, because of the fact that he could just increase his shooting percentages that much. And if he's not a threat to do that, and his fingers just hurting even too much to get into the lane, we did not see him go all the way to the rack very often. There was a couple plays in the third quarter that were awesome, but really for the most part, he was not trying to have his hand have the opportunity to get hit. So with all of that in mind, like, I do agree that at minus 105, it's good odds for them to not get that high. It's just always going to be a risk, when you're playing a team like when you are the Kings, and that's going to be what you rely upon to get there. So I mean, if I were going to tell you on this one, probably put a half a unit on it, but no problem with your bet there. And I'm going to move on to another bet from this game. That's my first pick, which is Clay, just to add to the fact that I think the Dubs are going to win game 6 and go to a player performance double on FanDuel for plus 158 for him to get 25 in the Dubs win there. Let's get the trifecta of 3 games in a row for Clay with 25 plus after having a pretty poor first 3 games, going 21, 21, and 13 points. And then I'm just going to scroll down here to what I'm going to talk about in player props, where I'm looking at Clay game 6 and why I'm going to talk about him a bit in that player props video as well. 28 points per game in their last 6 game 6s. That's with 6.5 made threes in 39 minutes. I get to say those numbers that are distorted by a 41 point performance against the Thunder not that long, well, a while ago now, like 7 years ago, that where he hit 11 threes. But there's other games in there with 6, 7, and 9 made 3-pointers in that span. He had one dud where he scored 9 points and had 3 threes in the finals there against the Cavs, which they needed him anyway. So even with that in mind, he still gets comfortably over the total at 25 right there, where you can get his props, I think, still at about 22.5 is the best bargain you're going to get, probably up to about 23.5 by the time people see this video as we record early to get ahead of these early lines. But I still believe in Clay a lot at this point. I think he found his rhythm in game 5 there and was really on a pace to continue to get close to 30, except for he had so many fouls. He had 3 in the first half and had to come out. He had like 3. He had, I think, 7 points in a row. 8 points in a row for the Dubs at one point at the end of the second quarter, and then had to come out when he got his 3rd foul with about 3 minutes left. That was a big bummer. Same thing happened at the end of the 4th quarter, where he had 5 fouls with 8.5 minutes left. They were up 10. He came out after hitting a bunch of shots, blah, blah, blah. Point is there were points on the table if he just doesn't try to be a shot blocker at the rim and foul people for no reason when that should not be his role. He's too important to the offense. So I think that'll be a conversation they have. And they're 9-2 in game 6s are the Dubs on all those times I was talking about here. You can go back about another 10 years total, and that's where they are. The 2 losses they had in game 6s were both in the finals, once against Toronto when they didn't have anybody because Clay and KD and everybody was falling like flies, and then in game 7 against they lost a game 6 to the Cavs when they let them come back from down 3-1, etc. They did not have Draymond in that game after he kicked LeBron in the nuts and was suspended for game 6. So I feel good about them being able to do this. Fox's broken hand. The points would feel better about the under. I'm not really touching that as much in this game, but I would agree with you. In those game 6s, they're looking at 109 points themselves, and you made the point they only give up 103, playing at a slow pace. Things are going to slow down. It's like the end of a first round series like this is still sort of equivalent of like a conference finals, and it really has been for the entirety of the series. So I think it's time for it to continue to slow down just a tick.
Yeah, Clay was really starting to get hot, like you mentioned, and then he got in foul trouble. I think he was on pace easily for like 5 or 6 threes, which is where I think you might get better juice if you do the player performance double. If you go like 6 threes, if you're truly calling a game 6 Clay, he's probably hitting 6 threes, right, and the Dubs are probably winning. And yeah, the Kings are just overplaying Steph, and that obviously opens things up for Clay. We talk all the time about how he's better with Steph out there and when Steph is cooking, and that's certainly the case right now. So the other game that goes on at the same time, we are definitely targeting under. We are on the same page there. I'm going under 219.5, where the total's at right now, and AD to get 14 rebounds, which is a nice plus 240 if you put the two together. I mean, AD is owning the paint right now. The Lakers, I mean, LeBron is also getting a ton of rebounds in this series because it's just been really ugly and scrappy. And Memphis will try to push the pace, it seems like. It's going to be a real push and pull here. And the Lakers got to slow it down, right? That veteran team, only 1 day rest. For some reason, they were out there deep into the fourth quarter after losing the game by the third. And now they're on a little bit shorter rest. They're going to want to play slower. But, I mean, either way, AD's going to have to man the paint. And he has been able to because the Grizzlies are shorthanded down there. He's averaging nearly 16 boards and 25 points, playing 39 minutes per game the last 3 in the series. In the regular season against Memphis, he averaged 29 points, 20 and a half rebounds. So he understands what it takes to beat this team here. Lakers going under. I mean, last 5 home playoff games with an actual crowd, since the bubble, their games are averaging 210 at a 95 pace. They were 3-1 to the under, with the one over going to 213. And then they got an over there because it was 208 with the Grizz there, and then it went to overtime, which did an additional 20 points. Yeah. In game 5, there were 106 available rebounds. That's what I'm talking about with a fast pace, not a lot of made shots. So that's why AD grabbed 19 boards or whatever he did. I mean, he's having a career high year on the glass, 28% defensive rebounding rate, 20% total rebounding rate. He's almost at that same number in these playoffs. So I'm looking for ways to parlay that. I don't necessarily trust the Lakers to win this game. I mean, that could be a nice 3-leg here, and it gets you like plus 380 if you say under and Lakers win. Yeah. But maybe you want to put half a unit on each, on either the under and AD to do this, or the Lakers to win and AD to do this, because I think he's just so crucial to them having success right now. As we know, if he comes with ferocity on both ends, they're probably going to be able to pull it out.
Yeah, that's a great call because I feel equally as comfortable. I feel a slight bit better about the under 219.5 combined with the rebounds. I think it makes sense. There's a little bit more correlation there, but not that much more. There's still a heavy correlation between him getting a bunch of boards and them winning this game, because I do agree that their offense is going to slow down a bit. I'll talk about the Lakers offense slowing down via a LeBron James under in the props video that I'll talk about in that one. But like all of that stuff is correlated to the same kind of game theory that we're both talking about here, which is continuing to have a slower pace than is expected when you think of Ja Morant versus LeBron James led Lakers team right now. But yeah, that's why targeting the under feels right. AD rebounds for sure. Like I don't want to be scared. I mean, his prop is at 13.5, and it probably should be. He's gone over twice and under twice, but I think it's kind of like we've been saying, like there's going to be more rebounds available now, and he might be a sort of slightly older, more injury prone head than the other youngsters on this team. But like, make no mistake, we saw Wenyen Gabriel in the second quarter last night, and that was not pretty. So like, I don't think they have much to go to outside of AD, and they're going to play him accordingly. Like, I think you'll continue to see Darvin Ham play him in a smart way as well, intelligently, and force them to bring Xavier Tillman out onto the floor whenever they want him to be on the floor by just having AD out there.
And as we always point out, AD would do anything to avoid getting on a plane back to Memphis. So he's got to bring it for his own health and his own motivation.
It's a great call, and I'm actually going to use your thought process there as a segue to my pick in terms of the travel stuff, because my last pick here is Memphis and Los Angeles to go under the 219.5, and I like it so much I'm just going to give it a unit and a half right now, which is, like I said, probably why I prefer it a bit to the AD combination with the victory for the Lakers. I prefer the under with that parlay, but just looking at my confidence in this one, I'm looking at all like really the way that this is slowed down. Like tired legs, right? Like obviously even Memphis, they're younger for sure than the Lakers, especially their best players. But at the same time, like traveling like this and continuing to have games every other day with a day of travel in between, that takes its toll on anybody, especially at the end of a long regular season. So what that's done has really been to limit the amount of fast break points that you're getting in this game and in this series. In the first couple games of this series, a bunch of fast break points. I mean, they're still getting more than most of these playoff playoff teams in terms of the amount of fast break points that both these teams are scoring. But at the same time, like, it's gone down relative to how many they were scoring. And they're still somewhat effective in the fast break, but they're just not getting out into it as much. And their half court offense is awful. I mean, they've got a 107 offensive rating for the Lakers in this game. And then in Memphis, it's 108 offensive rating. You look at the half court offenses, you can nip that down by about 5 points per 100 possessions for each of them, down to closer to about 100 even for both of them in the half court. Really, really bad stuff because of a number of reasons. They slowing down. It's not how these teams play. They want to get into the paint. They both want to just bash each other in the paint. And even without Steven Adams and Brandon Clark, Xavier Tillman's proven he's no slouch. I mean, he's definitely come down to earth a bit, and AD has sort of realized who he's playing against and gone, why am I not dominating Xavier Tillman? And then started to do it in the last 3 games, as you briefly mentioned, owning the paint. So with that in mind, that does take away a bit of what Memphis is able to do. At the same time, it beats up AD's ability to be a really solid scorer and have the energy to take guys like Tillman out off the dribble, because that's where he has as big an advantage of anything against Xavier Tillman is go out into space and make him guard you from 15 feet out and then slithery get to the rim and get an easy bucket. So, and probably a foul, but he doesn't necessarily have the legs to do that in a game where he's grabbing another 15 plus rebounds in this one like we think he will, et cetera. So, and then just, talking about LeBron, who I will get into in the player props and why I'm going under for some of his stuff. His 3-point shooting is a solid indication of how tired he is. In the last 3 games, he has made 2 of his 20 attempts from deep as he continues to just do other things like get 20 rebounds. That takes its toll on the tires that he's got there that are getting old. So I do think, even if he is getting the 5 fast break points per game that he's still getting, which leads his team, like, how many times in a row can he barrel into people before he just gets sort of tired? Man, I saw him trip over the foul line a couple times in game 5. He was so tired. So I do think all of that together combined makes me a unit and a half confident in the under in that one.
Yeah, the home team's got to try to dictate pace. And like I said, the Lakers have got to try to slow this game down. I mean, they're not really scoring without fast break points either, but you don't want to get into that game with Memphis. With Ja being hurt too, like, yeah, he hit some threes in that first game back, but I don't think he's going to hit that consistently. I mean, Memphis' strategy was clear in game 5. They wanted to play as fast as possible in the half court too. We're not just talking about the amount of possessions. They were trying to run the Lakers ragged, and the Lakers, veterans that they are, got to know to slow it down and try to grind this one out. I mean, you look at their playoff game log back to the bubble, of course. That's how they win games. They almost never go to 220.
Yeah, that's they're back to that old mantra that had them successful in the bubble. So that's all the time we have for you in our best bets video. Go ahead and like and subscribe to that page. You can check out our player props that we have for you as well. Pretty wicked hot so far this week. We're looking to stay that way for you guys on Friday night. And until we see you next, happy betting.